Here are 3 DIY gifts you can make, starting with a ruffle collar that can be worn 3 different ways. For this project, I'm using a thrifted men's shirt. I start by cutting the shirt down to the largest usable pieces of fabric, beginning with the back section. From that piece, I cut one rectangle that measures 27.5 inches wide by 10.25 inches tall. On both of the short ends, I fold the fabric down 1/4 inch, press, and then fold it down another 1/4 inch to create a finished edge. These edges will be the front opening of the collar, so make sure to iron them well and stitch both sides down. Next, I fold the fabric lengthwise with right sides together and sew along the long edge using a 3/8 inch seam allowance, leaving both short ends open. This creates a tube. I then turn the tube right side out, place the seam toward the bottom and press flat. This next step is where you can customize the look of your collar. You'll be creating a casing for the tie that forms the ruffle at the top. In my collar, I stitched my first line about 3/4 inches down from the top edge. But if you want a larger ruffle, you can move this line closer to the center. Once that first line is sewn, I stitched a second line 3/4 inch below it to create the casing. For the tie, you can either use a fabric drawstring or a ribbon. And just a quick side note, if you want a really big bow at the front, make your casing slightly wider and create a wider drawstring. This project is very customizable. I wasn't able to film the drawstring portion, but once it's made, you'll feed the drawstring or ribbon all the way through the casing and tie off the ends. And that's it, the collar is finished. You can wear it tucked into a sweater, tuck the ties in, let the ties hang out, or wear the entire collar on the outside for a more dramatic look. Next up is my DIY lampshade slipcover. This one is so cute. It is very cottage and I just love it. And it is also something that will have to be completely custom based on your lampshade, but I'm going to give you all the steps you need to know in order to make it fit your particular lampshade. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm using this beautiful thrifted candlestick lamp with a metal lampshade that I'm going to cover. First thing I did was measure around the top of the lampshade to find the circumference. I multiplied that number by 3 so the finished shade would be nice and full. I wrote that number down and then measured from the top to the bottom of the lampshade to find the height. To that measurement, I added about 4 or 5 inches. I wanted at least an inch for the ruffle at the top, a nice wide hem at the bottom, and I wanted the fabric to extend a little longer than the lampshade itself. You can absolutely customize this depending on the look you want. Once I had my measurements, I cut out my fabric rectangle. Next, I worked on the top edge where the ruffle will be. In my case, I wanted about a 1-inch ruffle, so I folded that top raw edge over a 1/4 inch, pressed it, then folded it down another inch and pressed again. From the bottom hem, I wanted it deeper, so I folded the raw edge up a 1/4 inch, pressed, and then folded it up several more inches to create a wide hem. After ironing both edges in place, I stitched them down. The next step was creating the casing. I cut a strip of fabric the same length as my rectangle. This will become the casing for the drawstring. I folded the strip in half lengthwise and pressed it to create a center crease. Then I opened it back up and folded each long edge into the crease, pressing again, similar to making bias tape. You can absolutely use store-bought bias tape here. I just chose to make my own. To attach the casing, I opened it up and placed it along the top ruffle area, and the right side of the casing facing the wrong side of the lampshade fabric. To attach the casing, I opened it up and placed it along the top ruffle area with the right side of the casing facing the wrong side of the lampshade fabric. I stitched along the crease, then folded the casing down and top stitched along the bottom edge to create the channel. After that, I folded the entire rectangle in half with right sides together and stitched down the short ends to form a tube. I made sure to skip over the casing area so I didn't sew it shut and could still thread my drawstring through. Finally, it was time to make the drawstring. I cut mine at least 1.5 times the width of the fabric. You can always trim it shorter later. You can see the instructions for making the drawstring on the screen, or you could even use a ribbon if you prefer. This part is very customizable depending on how large or dramatic you want the tie to be. I attached a safety pin to the drawstring and threaded it through the casing. Then I slipped the cover onto the lampshade and adjusted the gathers until everything looked just right. And that's it! The lampshade slipcover is finished and I love it. I make my bows in 3 sizes. A large, which is really big and great for statement pieces, a medium, which works well for a lot of different projects, and the one I'm working on today is a small bow. For this bow, I am reusing more of this men's shirt and cutting out 3 fabric pieces I need: the bow, the tails, and the center strip. I'm going to start with the bow section. First, I fold the fabric lengthwise, right sides together, and stitch down the long edge to create a tube. Then I flip the right side out and press it flat with the iron. Next, I insert a piece of warm and natural batting between the layers. Once that's in place, I fold the bow in half and stitch it shut. After that, I flip the raw edges to the inside. This completes the bow section. Now onto the tails. I fold the tail piece lengthwise, then fold that in half. Using my scissors, I trim the ends to create the shape I want for the tail points. I sew from one pointed end towards the middle, backstitch, skip a small section to leave an opening for turning, and then continue sewing down to the other pointed end. Once it's sewn, I flip the tails right side out, push out the points, press it flat, and stitch the opening closed. Finally, I cut my center piece. I fold it lengthwise and stitch down that long edge. Then flip it right side out and press it. Then I stitch the short ends together to form a loop and flip the raw edge to the inside. To finish the bow, I slide the bow piece through the center loop. Then pull the tails through as well. There's no need to stitch anything together. Just adjust until it looks full and balanced. And just like that, the bow is finished.